So some really great ideas. You know, one of the things that inspired me is the outdoors, our public lands, our public forests, our national parks, as sources of art, inspiration for both the artist and for those who enjoy that art. A source of awe. I wrote down your brain on nature. You know, a lot of us have seen that commercial, your brain on drugs. Well, this is your brain on nature and how inspiring that is. And the outdoors, our public lands as healing and wellness centers. Wow. So I immediately started thinking about how can I get my doctor to write a prescription that tells me I have to spend at least an hour outside each day, preferably during work hours. My employees are going to go, yeah, now I know where she's going to be every day. So anyway, what I'll probably have you do is raise your hands. I'll call on you if you have a particular person in mind that you would like to ask you the question of, or if not, we'll just kind of see who best fits the subject matter. So who wants to start us off? All right, we have an early adopter.
Make it easy so you don't have to walk right away. My question is for Bachelor number 1, Jason. Is that a local program only? Is it around the country? If I wanted to give my dad a vacation and ship my mom out to participate, does she have to come all the way from New York to Los Angeles, or is there places around the country that she can apply?
So it's my understanding that there are, again, as I had said, that there's about 50 of similar type programs throughout the nation located in the national park system, and about 10, to the best of my knowledge, on our national forests. I can only speak on behalf of the program that we do. I think each forest and each park does their program in their own particular way, which I think caters to the available resources that they have and the community that surrounds, their forest or their park. I know that our forest, it covers, our boundary is near Los Angeles County, but we're near Palmdale on the backside of our mountain. So basically any of the communities that are surrounding our forest, or people that are willing to commute to our forest or commute to that area, they're eligible for the program. I know that the National Park Service at the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area, they also have an artist in residence program. I don't know how they do their program necessarily. I was just introduced to the person who does that about a month ago. But that's another option for people who are a little bit further north. But again, it's really, I would suggest that whoever's interested in doing that, contact whatever forest or park that they're interested in, or whatever's closest to them, and see if that's a resource that they have. Because again, not every forest does this, but I think we're more than willing to accept all applicants who are willing to participate in the program and offer the amazing artwork that they produce and experience what we have to offer on our forest, because again, every forest is unique in the experience that it offers. And so, I think that's the suggestion that I would give. Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Jason and Florence. Jason, is this program a draw for a public, and how does the public get to interact with the artists?
Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, so a lot of the way we've gotten this information out has been a lot of word of mouth and other artists, networking with other artists throughout Los Angeles. And the way that the public interacts through that is, so when the artists apply for a residence and they select their location, the locations where they're housed, they're on our public land, so they're open to the public. So none of the locations are closed. So as long as the public's going through there, they have the opportunity to interact with the artists while they're there in residence. So for instance, at our Crystal Lake campground, again, it's only about 25 miles away from the city of Azusa, so it's not that far of a drive. But it's a well-known picnic and campground area. It's very popular on our forest, so a lot of people already know about the area, and just from one or two people coming up, word gets out that that there's an artist up here who's doing maybe photography or who's doing painting with watercolors, or a musician, and that kind of gets out. It's hard for us to really advertise that. I mean, we do the best we can in promoting that on our webpage and on the Artist in Residence website as well, in addition to our Forest Service website. But a lot of that is just people filtering in just on weekend recreation. And one of the things, again, that's really unique about our forest is we have high levels of recreation from regular users on a daily basis. So whereas a lot of other forests might, such as Yosemite and stuff like that, they get a lot of visitors from across, from all across the United States and across the world. A lot of our visitors are people who are visiting from other places, but a lot of them are just regular day in and day out users. And I've seen that just from basic, trips into the forest at any given time during the week, and seeing them just filled with people who are just doing daily recreation. And so that way we get a lot of traffic coming in and out of the forest, and that's where we really have that unique opportunity. We see so many people on a daily basis and so many people on an annual basis that at the height of recreation season, from the spring to throughout the summer, we have our programs, and people are able to come across the artists and ask, what they're doing. And the last piece I would say is the Artists in Residence annual group show that takes place at Heritage Square Museum. So that's a museum that's located, I'd say, about 5 or 6 miles outside of Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, and that's not in a Forest Service setting. That's a LA County run facility. And so that is open to the public as well. And the last group show that we did for the previous year, we had a lot of people come in and out who already knew what the program was about and who were coming to visit the artists and see their displays. But we also had a lot of general public coming in and out. And when they would come in, we would basically talk about what we were doing and kind of encourage them to go visit the exhibits. And through that, we were able to promote the program even more and speak to other artists that were interested. So that's kind of how we do it.
I imagine this is probably for both groups, but Florence, I would think that the therapeutic impact of being outside varies from person to person, but how long did it take for you to have a measurable impact on being outdoors?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Do you mean when I did my personal sort of measures? Yes. That's a good question. I sort of dipped in and out of these experiments, and they weren't, I think, very telling, as far as results. I did with the portable EEG unit. That one was probably the most interesting. I wore that in a lot of different environments, and I was looking for alpha waves, which are associated with sort of a state of calm and alert. And that's kind of the prized brainwave of surfers, poets, philosophers. You hear that about flow states. And I had a really hard time achieving alpha waves. I wore it in a city. I wore it in a couple of city parks. And the software from the machine was kicking me back these interpretive responses like, you seem to have a hard time relaxing. It was really annoying. But I did wear it on a lake in Maine early one morning at dawn when the mist was rising and there were no anthropogenic sounds. And I did get alpha. But so that was about a 15 or 20 minute, but it was wilderness for me that.
There's okay.
I don't need a microphone. Do you?
We need a microphone. We need it to record it.
How good is the peer review and some of the stuff? You used science quite a bit when you talked about this. And the reason I ask is there are a couple of statements you made that sort of stick out to me. One is that you stated that people that live within a certain distance within green belts are healthier. Well, there could be a lot of reasons for that, socioeconomic factors, all kinds of things. And the observation I have is that I live in the West and I live right next to an Indian reservation. The Native Americans live close to nature as anybody, and they're the least healthy population where I live.
Okay. The first part of that question is with those large epidemiological studies, those are peer-reviewed studies, and they did control for socioeconomic factors in those. So they looked at nurses, for example, who had relatively the same socioeconomic status. They disqualified ones who were different, and they also controlled for a number of other no people with extreme depression, for example. So they did control for those. The second part of your question is, yes, there is definitely a rural-urban divide in terms of health in this country. And a lot of that has to do with, frankly, who has access to health care. So it's not necessarily about where you live. But we know that, ironically, people who live in cities do tend to be healthier, and that's because of access to health care.
Thanks, Kristin.
Diane Wood with NEEF, National Environmental Education Foundation. Fabulous presentations, everybody. Thanks. And I guess my question's directed to the Barton team. And I'm wondering, as we see the health insurance industry starting to recognize alternative medicines, acupuncture and others, have you begun conversations? Are you seeing any trend in the health insurance industry to start to think that nature
I think
might
that's a fantastic question, because I think it makes logical sense to promote wellness and not treat disease, but our whole system is based on intervention and pay for that, and it is a big business. So it hasn't really been addressed. We are in the process of building a wellness center and on our facility. In terms of how that's remunerated is still a debate. I think there is a lot of push among employers and insurance companies to promote a wellness lifestyle, and you'll have decreases in your cost for insurance. How that is compensated, it's still a debate. Sometimes outdoor therapy can be billed as a therapy session. But we didn't approach it as a business model. We approached it more as a service to the community, and it's relatively low cost, and hopefully get this jump started because we need a paradigm shift, and it's going to be slow.
You brought up volunteering. Our healthcare system, it's small, it's a nonprofit hospital, and our insurance package for next year is recognizing volunteering, and you get a point for that reduces your monthly fee. So it's pretty progressive, actually, but it just exemplifies that getting outside, helping community, doing good improves your health, and therefore your insurance costs should go down. So we'll see what happens with our hospital.
Hi, my name is Linda Craighead, and I have a question for Dr. Banner and Kristin. As outdoor recreation professionals, many of us have recognized what you guys are beginning to recognize already, but the challenge that we've had is in our particular state is really engaging the healthcare industry in potentially working with us to make a prescription for nature, to do some of those things that the outdoor industry has recognized for a long time. But how would you recommend, or what would you recommend that we do to reach out to our local healthcare providers to really get them engaged in our outdoor opportunities?
That's a perfect question, because I could see that as a potential barrier. First off, I agree with the skepticism of the other question. If there's a skeptic, you should look at the science, and there is good science now that if you look at it's peer-reviewed, and I think all physicians and healthcare people want some peer-review science to validate it first. The other is engage all of the healthcare workers in your area that are interested in the outdoors. They're going to be like-minded. They want to run outside, bike outside, play outside. They're already motivated. So spending another day outside is not going to be hard pressure. So it's sort of a slow process, but you can identify that community of people that have like-minded ideas, and you'll be surprised how many physicians love being outside and how many nurses want to be outside with their patients. And it's a slow process. Your healthcare coordinator can help with that community, and any society, biking club, running club. You'll be amazed how many healthcare workers are involved.
Probably to add to that, every hospital has a community outreach person, not like myself, but more in the marketing department. So that would be the first point of contact. And then at the U.S. Forest Service, someone like yourself, Joe, a partnership coordinator. So that's how we came up with this idea. Then we had a random meeting, and it came up. And then probably the most challenging that took us the longest time was maybe 6 months. We actually developed an agreement, and it's a 16-page document, and it's Barton shall and U.S. Forest Service shall. And then each subcategory that Joe talked about, so the wellness outings, the training, and the prevention, that has a separate supplemental participating agreement. So you can always go back. It's an agreement that binds the two organizations and makes it real. And also, back on that, is our leadership of both the hospital and the Forest Service bought into the program economically and with risk, right? It's a huge risk for us to be out there with patients because they're thinking, oh my God, if they fall, what happens next? So we took it through our legal team. We have waivers, we have the agreement, and in a year we've done 3 outings and the prevention medicine. So it can be done.
One more quick comment on the Forest Service side is I think the folks that you've already mentioned, the partnership coordinator, but equally as important to getting that formal agreement, this master cost share agreement is the mechanism of agreement between the Forest Service and Barton Health. The agency folks that work in grants and agreements have been absolutely critical to get those documents executed and formalized. So another maybe resource to tap into if you have those kinds of folks.
Good morning, and thank you. Those were excellent and inspirational presentations. I think we were all nodding our heads. Yes, yes. Joe, is there any thought to expanding the program regionally within Region 5 or then possibly nationally for the Forest Service?
That's a great question. I think we're excited to think about starting to export this model, but I think there's also an emphasis of making sure getting our program off the ground locally. But I think there is a national conversation going in the Forest Service about changing the way we do recreation. And I think people are becoming more and more interested in these types of innovative projects where we could potentially export this throughout the region, potentially, depending on resources, depending on what kind of capacity other forests have, what kind of buy-in their leadership might have. But I think there's a lot of interest there on the agency side to elevate this kind of model.
I know, right?
That was one of the reasons that 3 of us decided to come. It seemed silly, but it is a true partnership, and you need engagement and community, and we are committed. We all believe in it, and you'll be surprised in your own community who would buy in.
I just wanted a quick shout out to really one of the main reasons why we're in this partnership is really because of Joe Mead. I just wanted to give a shout out to Joe Mead. He has been so as in Lake Tahoe Basin, we're a what they call a valuing outdoor experiences demonstration area. We call them demonstration areas for short. And it's basically, we're supposed to be kind of a learning lab that's working on the front lines of doing recreation differently. Showing up differently in how we do recreation, working to actively expand the role of recreation in the Forest Service mission. And this is one of our demonstration area projects where we're trying to do things a bit differently, and that vision has really trickled out from the Washington office from visionaries like Joe Mead and others. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Let me just begin with a comment. What connects everybody in this room, and especially the 5 of you up on stage, is your passion. Your belief in what you do, that you can make a difference, your interest in inventing the better mousetrap. And congratulations to each one of you. You're doing a wonderful job, whether it's passion for the outdoors or passion for better health. It's something that we can all work on. You know, I think about Senator Proxmire years ago used to give out the Golden Fleece Award. And, you know, this country tends to emphasize the negatives. It's too bad we don't have a way to recognize great initiatives like this in that same way, where instead of a golden fleece, we're talking about a golden idea. You know, this idea of people who do their jobs, but in a better way and in a partnership. So just a big congratulations. And, you know, just the only thing I would ask you is, what can we do to pat you on your backs and tell you that we really believe what you're doing? What is it that this community can do to say, go for it? And you know, do you need red tape cutters, or do you need, you know, platforms, channels? I mean, what are the dreams you have for unleashing the partnerships that you're part of?
The dream would be what Florence described, starting with children and making sure they have that outdoor experience. Another great book is Nature Deficit Disorder and combating that. I think it's in a problem that we have to fight from birth and get exposure to nature. There's clearly a health benefit to that exposure, and the more we're separated from it, I think the more internal problems of our connected world and our overstimulated world are going to have. And clearly medications and other problems are not the answer. So I would love to see healing centers out there. I would love to see Forest Service, forest bathing centers around the nation where you could just sit and reflect. And it doesn't have to be in Tahoe, or it doesn't have to be in a beautiful national park setting. It could be in a park, in a parking lot where there's dandelions growing, and you can describe that with the children. I would love to see that connection back as a healing part for our whole nation.
And I think we struggled with this partnership in defining it. We did fight through that bureaucratic red tape. We had naysayers. We still do. And they're still waiting for us, to stumble potentially. But we have persevered. And the idea is that we did create this model, and we created a document to bind us. So our gift to you is to take that document and to initiate conversations with your healthcare system locally. We've done the hard work. Now you can take ours and make it better.
Just a quick thought on your question about what do we need. I think we're fortunate in the Lake Tahoe Basin to have a bit of capacity to be able to, on the Forest Service side, work to develop a partnership like this, reach out to the community, engage with Barton Health to deliver these benefits. But I think a lot of other forests might be hard-pressed to move forward with partnership like this because just of capacity issues. We have a lot of forests that are understaffed. We have limited resources, as you had mentioned. And so maybe just increased capacity would be a good starting point. I think we have very strong leadership intent from the top levels of the agency about doing business differently in recreation, but I think that the capacity oftentimes in the field is not quite there.
One more question. All right, we have a taker.
Thank you, and most interesting presentations. When you're talking about recreation, I'm assuming you're talking about both motorized and non-motorized?
Yeah, in our particular case, we're speaking about all kinds of recreation on our forest. I mean, we have a lot of your typical recreation when people think about people going for day hikes and picnicking and overnight camping, but we do also have a lot of OHV areas as well. We do have areas where we have special use areas as well for other activities such as hunting and whatnot. So we are talking about all, when I say recreation, we're talking about all the recreation that goes on in the forest, because again, that's an opportunity for us to interact with the people recreating in a positive way, and that and the Artists in Residence program represents a different approach and really a different opportunity for us to do so. But yes, there's all kinds of recreation. We do have a lot of recreation on our forest, and I think that's the dominant use of our forest. And a lot of our limited resources go towards upkeep of our recreation areas because they're so highly used on a day in and day out basis. So.
Well, what a start! I just want to ask you to join me in thanking Steve and Christy and Joe and Jason and Florence